8:45. This is Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by J. Yogaraj and read by Lavani Vijayatunga. First, we take a look at the headlines. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says the inflation is dropping gradually. The government plans to initiate a special tourism train service at weekends, which commences on the 15th of this month. The Sri Lankan embassy in Washington was able to secure 550 job opportunities to Sri Lankans this year in the US. Sri Lanka to introduce new laws to regulate social media. Sri Lanka to restart trade talk deals with India, China and Thailand. Loves slashes prices of domestic LP gas. In news overseas, Kevin McCarthy hopes for a deal as US House speakers fight hits day 4. And in sports news, it's tennis. Iga Swiatek loses to Jessica Pegula in the United Cup. Those are the headlines, and now we'll move on to the details of the local news. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says the inflation is dropping gradually. Accordingly, the inflation is expected to drop further during the first quarter of this year. The central bank expressed confidence that the inflation could be dropped to normal acceptable level before the end of this year. In case if inflation increases for some reason, then the government will change its policies to control the inflation. Dropping inflation will indicate that the economy is slowly restoring back to normal condition. The Sri Lankan embassy in Washington was able to secure 550 job opportunities to Sri Lankans this year in the US. The Sri Lankan embassy said this discussion between the American authorities and Sri Lanka's Foreign Employment Bureau was successful. Accordingly, 250 nurses, 200 nurse assistants and 100 lab assistants will be recruited. The government plans to initiate a special tourism train service at weekends, which commences on the 15th of this month. The train service from Kalani Valley to Wagga will be initiated on the 15th. The main objective of this exercise is to promote Sitawaka tourism sector. Minister Bandula Gunawardhan revealed this information during a discussion held at the Sitawakapura auditorium today. Sitawakapura tourism region will also be developed under this program. This is the news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. And we continue with more local news. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the government is working to introduce an act similar to the Telecommunications and Social Media Act currently used in Singapore to regulate social media platforms including YouTube and Facebook. The president made this observation during a discussion held today with the newspaper editors and news directors of electronic media at the Presidential Secretariat in Colombo. Responding to a question about the programs being followed by the government regarding the activities of certain social media activists, the president stated that although there are laws in Sri Lanka for newspapers and electronic media, there is no such legal framework for the regulation of social media in the country. The president stated that as a result, he has brought down the Telecommunications and Social Media Act currently used in Singapore and hopes to study it and prepare a legal framework suitable for Sri Lanka in the future. Loves Gas PLC, one of the country's 2 largest suppliers of domestic liquefied petroleum gas, has announced a reduction in the price of LP gas cylinders. Accordingly, a 12.5 kilogram cylinder of LP gas will now be sold at 5,080 rupees within the Colombo district, while the 5 kilogram cylinder will be sold at 2,032 rupees. Meanwhile, the consumers residing in other localities have been requested to contact the customer service hotline 1345 in order to find out the price reduction of domestic LP gas cylinders within their respective districts. Litro Gas Lanka yesterday reduced the prices of domestic LP gas cylinders as follows. 12.5 kilogram cylinder, 4,409 rupees, that's a reduction of 201 rupees. 5 kilogram cylinder, 1,170 rupees, reduced by 80 rupees. 2.3 kilogram cylinder, 822 rupees, and that's a reduction of 38 rupees. Sri Lanka will restart negotiations on trade pacts with India, China and Thailand after a 4-year hiatus, an official said on Thursday, as the crisis-hit country races to seal deals to help it rebuild its economy. The island of 22 million is in the midst of its worst financial crisis in over 7 decades, triggered by a severe shortage of foreign exchange that has left the country struggling to pay for fuel, food and medicine. Officials from Thailand are scheduled to arrive in Sri Lanka on Monday to start the third round of talks after negotiations were suspended in the year 2018, said KJ Veerasinghe, Sri Lanka's chief negotiator for free trade agreements. Negotiations with India and China, Sri Lanka's biggest trading partners, accounting for about 5 billion each in bilateral trade in the year 2021, are expected to begin in February and March. And to conclude the local news, the headlines once again. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says the inflation is dropping gradually. The government plans to initiate a special tourism train at weekends which commences on the 15th of next month. Sri Lankan Embassy in Washington was able to secure 550 job opportunities to Sri Lankans this year in the US. Sri Lanka to introduce new laws to regulate social media. Sri Lanka to restart trade talk deals with India, China and Thailand. Loves slashes prices of domestic LP gas. And that was the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The main news story for tonight, the Sri Lankan Embassy in Washington was able to secure 550 job opportunities to Sri Lankans this year in the US. The Sri Lankan Embassy said this discussion between the American authorities and Sri Lanka's Foreign Employment Bureau was successful. Accordingly, 250 nurses, 200 nurse assistants and 100 lab assistants will be recruited. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
And in Washington tonight, Sri Lankan police have arrested a total of 55 suspects following an operation into the rapidly increasing drug issues in schools within the Western Province. The operation was carried out near 149 schools between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. yesterday, leading to the arrest of 55 persons for the sale of drugs and narcotic pills. Police seized a total of 9 grams of 980 milligrams of ice, 16 grams and 420 milligrams of heroin, 2 grams and 833 milligrams of cannabis and 20 epilepsy pills. The operation was carried out under the instructions of the Senior Deputy Inspector General of the Western Province, police stated, adding that such raids will continue in schools belonging to the Western Province. That was in Washlight, and now let's move on to the headlines of the world news. China COVID, young people self-infect as fears for elderly grow. Kevin McCarthy hopes for deal as U.S. House Speaker fight hits day 4. Ukraine war, Kiev and Moscow blame each other as Putin's truce falters. Those are the headlines, and now more to the details of the world news. When Mr. Chen's 85-year-old father fell ill with COVID in December, it was impossible to get an ambulance or to see a doctor. They went to Qiangyang Hospital in Beijing, where they were told to either try other hospitals or sit in the corridor with an IV drip. There was no bed, no respiratory machine or medical equipment available, Mr. Chen tells the BBC. His father managed to find a bed at another hospital, but only through a special contact, and had then been developed a severe lung infection. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives will try for a 4th day to elect a speaker on Friday in an attempt to end a political impasse. The frontrunner Republican Kevin McCarthy has so far failed to reach the 218 votes required for the election. That's due to the right-wing cohort within his own party refusing to vote for him. A unilateral ceasefire called by Russia appears to have little effect on fighting on the ground, with officials accusing each other of opening fire on several areas. A Ukrainian rescue worker was killed in a Russian strike, while Russian state TV said that the city of Donetsk was hit. Russia ordered a 36-hour unilateral ceasefire to coincide with the Orthodox Christmas. And that was the world news.
Development News.
Moving on to development news, 7 ships of coal are scheduled to arrive in Sri Lanka within this month, according to Shehan Sumanasekaran, Chairman and the Managing Director of Lanka Coal Company. Accordingly, 7 ships, each carrying 60,000 metric tons of coal, are scheduled to arrive in Sri Lanka in early January. These coal ships are to be unloaded at Puttalam Harbour and the coal will be transported from there to Lak Vijaya Power Plant in Nuracholi. That came to you in the segment of development news. Now let's move on to sports news. At its tennis, world number 1 Iga Swiatek was left in tears after a straight set defeat by American Jessica Pegula in the semi-finals of the inaugural United Cup. Pegula, ranked 3rd in the world, needed just 71 minutes to wrap up a dominant 6-2, 6-2 win in Sydney. Poland's Swiatek, the French and the US Open champion, had beaten Pegula in their previous 4 meetings. That was a sports news, business news coming up.
Let us turn this difficult time that we are facing now to a positive opportunity. We must rise up as a nation in 2023. NSB will extend its fullest support for you to rise with confidence. NSB, the safest place for you.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Fitsia, Sri Lanka's first privately owned low-cost carrier, will launch direct flights to Tiruchirappalli, also called as Trichy, an ancient city in India's southern Tamil Nadu state, expanding their global destination radar. Fitsia officials said that they will operate 3 flights per week to Tiruchirappalli from end January. Fitsia of Aberdeen Holdings, earlier known as Expo Air, which operates with a single Airbus A320 aircraft, currently flies 3 flights per week to the Maldives and Dubai. That was the business news. Economic news follows.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank.
Let us turn this difficult time that we are facing now to a positive opportunity. We must rise up as a nation in 2023. NSB will extend its fullest support for you to rise with confidence. NSB, the safest place for you.
And in economic news, the free trade zone manufacturers' apparel exports have reached $5 billion in the year 2022, which is an increase as against last year, but exporters warned that this healthy trend is not going to continue. Secretary of the Free Trade Zone Manufacturers Association, Dhammika Fernandez, said that last year's Free Trade Zone apparel export companies' revenue was around $4.8 billion, and there is a $200 million increase as against the year 2021. That was economic news and the weather report to conclude.
Weather report.
And finally, the weather report. The Met Department says showers or thunder showers will occur at times in the northern, north central, eastern, over and central provinces. Fairly heavy showers above 50 millimeters can be expected at some places in the eastern province and in the Polonnaruwa district. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places elsewhere during the afternoon or night. Fairly heavy showers above 35 millimeters can be expected at some places in the Sabaragamuwa province and in the Kalutara and Galle districts. General public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. This weather report was published at 7:30 p.m. Further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. Meanwhile, the International Weather Forecast website, AccuWeather.com, reports that the day's weather was cloudy. Today's daytime temperature was observed to be around 27 degrees Celsius. Tonight's temperature will be around 26 degrees Celsius and there will be scattered showers in selected spots late in the night. The ground temperature would be 26 degrees Celsius at the time of this news broadcast. The air quality index AQI is 25. The air quality is generally acceptable for most individuals. However, sensitive groups may experience minor to moderate symptoms from long-term exposure. And before we conclude this bulletin of news, let's get back to the headlines once again. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says the inflation is dropping gradually. The government plans to initiate a special tourism trade service at weekends to commence on the 15th of this month. The Sri Lankan Embassy in Washington was able to secure 550 job opportunities to Sri Lankans this year in the US. Sri Lanka to introduce new laws to regulate social media. Sri Lanka to restart trade deal talks with India, China and Thailand. laughs slashes price of domestic LP gas.